Welcome back to the Mid-Year Mitch YouTube channel. Today's episode, we're officially making the Tribute Split a split window because we're gluing on this dynamic Corvette rear deck. I'm going to show you how to trim it, fit it, get it installed on the car, and then I'm going to install some new bonding strips as well as a brand new taillight panel to make this thing look like a car. So be sure to stick around. In the last video on the Tribute Split, you saw I repaired two firewalls, put them together, glued them in the car. I also repaired the main section of the floor, installed brand new fiberglass rockers, and I installed a brand new dynamic Corvette big tub rear floor kit to fit over the Roadster Shop Spec 7 chassis. So we have a good foundation here from the firewall back. It still needs refinement. Now it's time to work on making the top look pretty. So I need to put in the door latches and the strikers, get the doors adjusted properly to the bird cage where I'm happy with that, and then we need to work on getting this brand new dynamic Corvette's 63 top to fit. It's just kind of sitting in place, clamped in place roughly, but now it's time to come through here in areas where we need to whittle away some of this extra material the whole way around, get this thing to fit really nice, and then we can get ready to glue this in place. They started reproducing these off of an original new old stock unit. So these are pretty much as good as you can get as far as a 63 roof. Now, whenever they make them, they leave a little bit of extra fiberglass around this. The original roof would have came to this line out here, which is nice and sharp. And then you can see where I have marked out with Sharpie, it's a little bit lower here. That's where their mold was. And whenever they pulled it from the mold, they left you a little bit of material there to work it and to fit it into place. So right now what I'm doing is clamping one side down, getting the other side happy with this gap back here, and then looking up front, seeing how our gap looks up here and the whole way across. Now, it's gonna be a little high, a little low in some spots, a little high in some spots. That's just the nature of the beast right now. But right now I just want to get this thing positioned forward and backward where it needs to. And this side fits up almost perfect. I did a little bit of trimming on this edge, but you can see that this is a nice uniform gap. I'm going to leave all of my gaps tight until I glue the roof in place, and then we can work on opening these back up. But if you leave them tight and it expands a little bit whenever you glue it, then you have material to work with. But if you grind it too loose now, you glue it and opens up more, then you're just kind of screwed. So I try to leave as much material on as possible, and you can see from about here to about here we're low, which that's okay. We'll build that back up. There's a couple spots that are low on this side, and there's one on the other side. So I need to fill that in. I need to bring up the bonding strip just a little bit, so that way the roof is at the correct height. This is the time to adjust it now. While I do that, I'm going to grind the underside of this roof skin down to prep it to bond. So on these cars, there's bonding strips that run the whole way along here, across the front. There's a piece that goes across here. It bonds to the floor over through here. So I need to prep the underside of this in all those areas. Then I also need to grind the whole way down here and across here, about an inch or so. From this edge, because that's where the bonding strips go. So I need to grind these guys as well. These bonding strips are also from Dynamic Corvette, but I want to install these before we glue the deck on, because the quarter panel bonding strips actually overlap, or the roof overlaps the bonding strip. It kind of sandwiches it in the middle between the floor and the roof. So we want to get those installed ahead of time. So we got to do a lot of prep work, and now's our time to do our filling. So I have the roof mocked up on the car for the last time. I also installed the bonding strip on the taillight panel. That guy is glued on and cured up. So now it's a lot easier to clamp the taillight panel with the bonding strip onto the rear deck. That'll help add some strength to make sure that this deck is going to be glued in the right spot. And it only takes a couple clamps to hold it on because now it's a pretty rigid piece. The bonding strip is pretty flexible, but it forms to the taillight panel easily. And now these have a nice contour. So overall, I'm happy with the way that fits up. And I have all my clamps mocked up here. And I put Sharpie marks around where all the clamps are, just so I know where they need to go whenever there's glue on here. Hopefully everything will line up nice like this again, but we have real nice gaps, and the same is true on this side. You can see there's a nice flow across the roof. It all flows real nice. It fits together well. So now we're going to pull the roof off, and then we're going to put glue all the way down on the floor, on the roof, windshield frame. The whole area is going to get covered in glue. I'm probably going to end up using 4 or 5 tubes of glue to do this whole job. I have everything glued up here. First, I started by putting glue on the floor tub and the bird cage. Then Maddie helped me plop the roof on. Then I put bonding adhesive on the taillight panel. We got that in place, got it centered up in the car because there is a little bit of a peak to it that lines up with the spine. It also pretty much, this edge lines up with the edge of the rear deck. So we got that centered up looking good. And then I put glue on these bonding strips and got the quarter panel bonding strips in place. So the quarter panel bonding strip does get sandwiched in between this and the floor tub, so that's why I wanted to install it. It's a lot easier to do it now. It also helps set up the height for, you know, the way this fits in the door. Now I don't have the doors closed right now because I have clamps in the way. I did check them several times to make sure everything looked good, and I'm happy with the results. I put a bunch of clamps around the front of the windshield. I have a ratchet strap kind of pulling it forward lightly, just so I didn't have to fight it. Then there's some clamps to help bond it along the floor tub here. And you know, I just put clamps wherever they need to go. The car tells me basically where it wants them. So once this dries up, then I'll be able to come in here and sand all this flashing off, make it look real nice, and actually gap the doors properly to the roof. It's kind of hard to gap the doors perfectly whenever the roof is still kind of floating around, but now that she'll be glued in place, it'll be a lot easier to figure that out. So we're gonna let this glue dry up now, probably for the whole weekend. This stuff only takes 24 hours to cure, but when it's something this big, I just like to let it sit. But everybody gives me a hard time for all the clamps I have. Well, I only had a couple extra. We were running a little close on this one, but it looks really good. We decided to change it up and go with a 4 taillight panel on this. But this guy's looking really good. I'm happy with the way this one turned out. It took a lot longer to get it fit and to get it glued than I thought, because I never estimate the right amount of time. But this is a really nice part, and it turned out, I think it turned out really well. We'll see next week whenever I remove all the clamps, clean up the flashing, and get the doors closed. It's going to take a little fitting, but I think with minimal filler and stuff, this should all turn out nice. So in the next video, we're going to work on getting the quarter panels fit on this bad girl. So we're gonna have to do some grinding, some prep, some fitting, and I also got one control arm that was back ordered for this car. So we're getting closer to putting this thing together into a roller. I'm still missing one, but we're gonna do the quarter panels with it on the skates. We'll just check it, make sure it's level and everything. But overall, this is gonna be a really, really sweet car. So now it's starting to look like something, guys. This is looking like a reputable project at this point. Overall, this roof panel basically fit perfect. It still needed some tweaking, which is to be expected. They left some extra material on it that you could trim away just to make it fit your car a little better, which was nice to have. But overall, it fit perfect. This car is basically being rebuilt from the ground up, as you guys have seen in previous videos. So there is a little bit of extra manipulating to do because of that. But if your panel is a little bit low, you can always fill. Originally, what they did is they used a lot of bonding adhesive in all these areas, and they just squished it down. So I don't like to do it that way because, one, the glue is expensive, but two, I like to have a good idea of where I'm clamping to get a nice uniform surface. So I try to get it as close as I can before I glue it with some fiberglass filler, which is what I did around the roof and the door openings. So that should hopefully make the bodywork a lot less to do. Typically these cars need a little bit of bodywork between the door and the roof, so hopefully we avoided some of that, but we have a nice solid foundation here. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. We have a lot more videos coming up on this car. I know it's starting to look like a car now, and it's gonna get wrapped up here pretty soon, but there's still a lot to do on this thing. So I got a lot of work to do, and I'll catch you guys later.